Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Friday, November 3rd. We're going to take a look at Clover Health today. So CLOV, as I'm sure you know, has earnings coming up on Monday. And so I thought we would take a look and see what the chart might be able to tell us in terms of important levels, where it might hit support, if it pulls back, where it might hit resistance, if it booms, and also then check in on the Think or Swim study to see how the setup is looking there and any important levels or price points as it pertains to that. So first and foremost, this downtrend resistance was recently broken and it's doing a nice good job making a break for it. So it's really interesting timing that it's having some really good pushes, over 10% yesterday and then over almost 8% today when all was said and done. And some good sort of catalysts there. I think there was an upgrade or something. And so it's interesting sort of heading into earnings that there's this sort of uptick. Now that could obviously kind of play against bulls in the sense of even if there is a good report on earnings and the general sentiment would be positive, there may be a lingering question of, has the stock price moved up too much recently that it's already priced in the good earnings news? Now, I don't know that that's the case, and certainly things like DraftKings recently, or even something like SoFi relatively recently, would maybe sort of put us leaning in the direction of, this is a nice move to see the bulls stepping in and pushing the price upward on some good catalysts ahead of earnings, and that momentum may just continue on if there is a good earnings report. So that seems to be the general sentiment in similar types of stocks or stage of stock recently, but you never know when that's going to change. So I just thought I'd throw it out there and say, keep your eye on anything like that potentially taking shape. Now, I do want to get rid of this downtrend resistance because, like I said, it's broken it. It's done a really good job of getting distance from it. It doesn't look at the moment like it is going to threaten to come back beneath that downtrend resistance. So that's really, really impressive. That's really good. I know it may not seem like much because the price is where it is, but for a stock to be under such tremendous selling pressure and short pressure and to be able to reverse trend or at least make the old college try of breaking downtrend resistance and getting some distance from it, it's a feat that a lot of stocks fail at and fail at for a long time. So good on Clove for that. Now, something that did catch my eye that I plopped on the chart before I started recording the video, there's actually an uptrend support that's taken shape, and it's a nice sort of easy uptrend support, meaning it's not super steep like this, right? The thing is, you're always sort of like, oh God, when is this going to break? It's sort of nice and slow and steady, and it would have initiated back here around April of this year, and then it would have confirmed it first in July, and then this would have been where it sort of based out and got itself out from under that downtrend resistance and now has started to push off of. So some really critical moments at which it's hitting this uptrend support. And you see obviously the big movement that was made from here. It took this price from about high 70s up to 163 before it busted again. But it's catching it right back on that support level. So I'm interested to see if that develops as a thing, because that could be obviously the most helpful thing for Clove, aside from these sort of sporadic catalysts like, analyst upgrades, good sentiment on earnings, that sort of thing. In a longer trend with all the lull in between earnings and in between any good news, uptrend support, if it can hold, if it can establish for a lengthy period of time, now that would really, really be a good buoy to the stock. So I'm most interested, no matter what, to keep an eye on that and see if that continues to hold in the days or weeks or months ahead. Now, levels wise, I didn't want to clutter the chart too much. So there seems to be an obvious level at $1 here. It seems like an obvious psychological level, so there's that, but also you see support here, resistance here, and then it's done a really good job working through that relatively quickly today. And well, yesterday into today, I should say. And then the level I had above that 107.3, which it's peaking its head above that at the moment, and then 113.6 and 120. Now, I didn't want to clutter the chart too much, so there is a decent amount of space in between these levels. So just realize that intraday, there's going to be additional levels that take shape. Today, today that wasn't really the case, unless you wanted to say, sort of topping out here at like 110. But unless I go in and really clutter the chart, you just make note that these are spread out, because I think that for the time being, at least, these are the strongest levels for support and resistance. But there are going to be some additional ones that develop intraday, and maybe those become stronger over time. But for the time being, to my mind, the ones that I have here are the strongest ones that we have to pull from at the moment. So those are the levels that I'm going to look forward to. The downside, I'm not really going to put anything because we have this potential downtrend support at the moment. Now, if I had to add something in, I'd say here probably about 95 cents would make a lot of sense to me, no pun intended, based on recent price action, but there's not a ton to pull from that. So if it comes back down into that range and starts to put in a lot of motion around that area, then we'll come in and update the chart. But, if this thing is going to base over $1, or it's going to have a really good reaction to earnings and even base higher, then it just seems unnecessary to put, levels lower. And like I said, just basically clutter up the chart slowly but surely. So I'm going to hide these for a moment. We're going to see where things sit on the EMA side of things. So this is a really good movement if it can make it happen. Earlier today, now that I think about it, I had quickly looked at this, and the thing that really caught my eye was this jump where it was caught under the 8 EMA for quite a while, which is what you expect. And then when it pushed to the 21, this sort of like peachy color, it really did a good job just establishing right to it. It just sort of magnetically stuck to it. It was just like, I'm not taking resistance right now. I'm just going to pin myself here. And then today, just this leap right over the 34 EMA, if it can establish support over the 34 and it can start to ride that for now, or even continue upward and get some distance from it, this 8 EMA, the white one, is going to cross above the peach one, very, very quickly here, maybe even through Monday. And that would be the first bullish crossover. And then if it continues, that 8's going to push above the 34, it'll be a second bullish crossover. And then if it continues, it would drag this 21 over the 34, third bullish crossover. That would put the EMAs in a fully bullish formation like we saw back here. Right? And then it gives you an opportunity to ride the support levels. And then when it starts to really wrestle with it and breaks, then the trend is broken and it's reverse trend, right? This is sort of neutral trend. Trend is neutralized. Uptrend, trend is neutralized, and then break of the trend. Now this could have neutralized and then gone back to the bulls, right? It didn't, but it could have. But the neutral trend is when you're looking, okay, is the trend going to continue or is it going to reverse? So really strong motion here, but yeah, so the couple of questions that I have at the moment is how does the general public, how does the market at a macro level digest this recent strong uptick in price against whatever the news is on earnings? Now, if it's a bad call, that's obvious, but even if it's a good call, like I said, how much does the market feel it's priced in versus how much does the market feel like, hey, we're going to keep riding this bullish momentum because it's been strong lately and we're just going to keep on trucking. Again, that latter sentiment has been mostly what it's felt like to me for something like DraftKings, is the one that comes to mind most strongly because we just did it yesterday. And we had the same discussion there, and we see how that played out today, right? Really, really, really big movement today. So we'll see if that trend continues for CLOV, or the biggest component of this is what even is the earnings call. So we'll have to see what that is. Now, on the think or swim side of things, a couple of important points. 180 to 200 EMA cloud sitting up here. So if it does push strong and starts to push up out of the upper bound of the channel like we saw over here, it could hit some stickiness in that range. We saw it stuck to it here for several days before it pushed through. And then ultimately that's where it was trying to hold support on the way down, right? So that's the double-edged sword. You have an area of really strong resistance. If you can flip it to support, then you hope that that is then really strong support. And that definitely is what played out here until it lost it again. But it tried for several days to hold on. So I'm interested to see what it does if and when it moves to that level. And this establishes it up over the mid-range of the channel, which is always an important sort of wrestling point, or fork in the road, if you will, to see if it's going to reject hard off of there. But that motion was just so strong yesterday, it just took it right up. Now, per this study, it still is clocking it as a neutral trend in yellow, not quite ready to say, hey, we're in a bullish trend yet, which makes sense, right? This is a long time drawing down. And if we scroll left, scroll backward in time, there's even a longer storied history of downtrend. So, everything was sort of like a grain of salt and an air of caution, if you will. Now, on the TTM squeeze indicator, a bit of bearish momentum, obviously, but it's just been kind of trickling down. Not really any banger move like we saw here when it just banged to the upside. We had a huge uptick on the histogram. So, some strength here for sure. But as of late, with all this motion, pretty like stingy, pretty much like just trickle down, but nothing really banging. So we had a trigger and a fire recently. So I'm interested to see if we had triggering in this range when it was battling with the mid-range and the lower mid-range. And then when it fired, did we get the thing that I feel like we most common see, not in CLOV, but just in these sort of stocks in particular with this study, is a counter trend move at the beginning of the fire right here. And then the actual move is the counter to the initial counter trend. So in this case, it would be a big, strong move up. I don't know, but it is interesting timing with, it firing downward for several days and then hitting counter to that as it's approaching such a big catalyst like earnings. So we'll see, but I'm keeping an eye on that as well. And then here we see, just to make a note, last time we had a trigger and a fire, really lengthy trigger here and a really nice setup because it was triggering right as it was truly pinned to the mid-range of the channel, and it was pinned to that 180 to 200 EMA cloud. So really strong level, like a doubly strong level, because it had both of those things on the chart triggering while it's there, and then when it fired, it really, made a pretty solid move to the downside. Took it from about 120 something down to like under 90 cents, I guess. At one point, or we could say 90 cents, just below 90 cents. So percentage-wise, pretty big changes there. RSI in the rise, obviously, as bearish momentum may be finally kind of getting quashed. So as you can probably tell, I'm reluctant to dive in and sort of wave the bull flag because it's, like I said, it's a long storied history in a lot of these former IPO enter your next letter stocks that have just been a tremendous struggle over the past several years. So keeping that in mind, but there are these brief periods of strength and motion that give the bulls some opportunity. And so, we'll see if that presents this time around. I am mostly buoyed by the potential for this nice and easy uptrend support that could be taking shape. The next test of it, if and when that comes, could certainly be very, very interesting, because that would then then I would feel like it's more of an established uptrend support. This is really just confirmed twice, right? This is an initiation, first confirmation, second confirmation. What happens on the third? That's when I start to feel more like, okay, to me, this still feels like it's a toddler a little bit. There would feel like it's a little bit more grown up if it retests and confirms again. But who knows? I mean, that could happen way out here in the future. It could be well into the dollar range at that point, and who knows what that looks like. But we'll know more as we get into next week. All right, folks, I hope that you had a good trading week and that you enjoy your weekend. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.